Alrighty, so in this video, I'm going to end up showing you how we can end up modeling our spring data and creating this scatter plot and actually constructing an equation that will actually we'll be able to use to model our data. Okay, so this is what the final product is going to end up looking like. So first off, I started off with some data that looked like this, right? And so what I ended up doing is I ended up actually selecting all of this data here. So if I click on this cell here, hold down Shift and then press Control C, I can also hold down Control after that. And then what I can do is I can start clicking on these cells, right? So now what I can do is once I have all this data selected, I can press Control C. Now, why am I selecting only the displacement in meters and the applied force in newtons? It's because that's what we want to end up using to compare our data and creating this. And so what I then ended up doing is I'll delete this and I'm gonna actually create a new one here. But what I wanna do is I wanna create a new sheet. Now I'm gonna put in here filtered data. Now what you can do down here for this sheet, you can end up calling it data, or you could even put raw data, right? I mean, the raw data is basically whenever you actually create it, like in your engineering notebook, whenever you write that down, that's your raw data. If you also ended up creating it just by putting it in here, you could also say raw data. But now what we want here is our filtered data. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to press Control Shift V, and that's going to paste it in there. Now notice, I want to paste the values only. I do not want to paste the format only. So paste values only is what we're doing here. Now, what we can end up doing is we can end up doing the same thing as before. We can kind of clean this data up a little bit, make it look a little bit better. I'm gonna create the border for this. I'm gonna make sure it has that weight of lines. I'm gonna also end up taking this, I'm gonna expand this out here so we can click on these two guys, expand those, keep going with it. We can expand that out that far. What I can also do is I can select that. I can go here to center it. I can center it vertically too. So now we've got this set up where it looks a whole lot better. Well, what we want to do now is we want to actually take this data, we want to create a scatter plot for it. So if we highlight that, so I'm clicking here in cell A1, holding down Shift, I'm gonna click on cell B6. Now what I can end up doing is I can click insert and I can insert a chart. Now what I wanna do is select from this drop down here, I wanna select a scatter chart. So as you're going down here, you're gonna end up eventually seeing it right here, scatter chart. Now what should end up automatically populating are your vertical labels. So your vertical axis should be the applied force in newtons. Your horizontal axis should be the displacement in meters. What you can end up doing is you can rearrange this if it doesn't show up correctly like that, okay? So what we want to do next is we want to actually get an equation modeled for this. So if I go to customize, what we can also do here is we can end up going to legend. And so I see that it is not in legend. I want to go to actually, let's see here. Was it chart and axis titles? No, not that one. It should be somewhere around here. Let's see here. So horizontal, major grid lines. What we're looking for is a trend line. So let's see here. So series, let's try that out. Series, trend line, no. We scroll down, perfect, there it is, so series. So it's in series here. We wanna scroll down, we wanna go to trend line. What we wanna do is we wanna model this as a linear equation. And so what we can end up doing is we can change the line opacity and we can also change the thickness of that line. We can also put a label in here. Now the label, what we wanna do is we wanna label it using an equation. And so now you can see they've given us an equation in here. What we can also additionally do is show that R squared value as well. Since it is 1, that is very, very good. That means there's no standard deviation, right, of this. So it's all along this line here. So it's very, very good. So what we can end up finding with this is actually the stiffness of our spring here is what this K value is. Now it's 59.8, which means that our spring has a stiffness of 59.8. But anyways, that is the step on how we take our data and we end up creating a scatter plot, and we can add in the trend line in there and also add in the R squared value. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye-bye.